Fuck them Cowboys! Yeah!
Never lose sight of the magic of this football team.
Yeah! Here we go!
I'm all in.
Cowboys fans, it's your host Slater here. If you bleed silver and blue and you want honest talk, no filters, you're in the right place. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, and enjoy the video. Yeah, so Trikweze Bridges, he's a 25-year-old, like you just said, who was acquired by the Dallas Cowboys this past training camp, acquiring him off of via signing him off of a practice squad before the season started. So he wasn't somebody who was really out there in the preseason games, if I'm not mistaken. I remember this right, but we picked him up after people made their cuts off of their last preseason game rosters.
Yep. It was when we realized that we weren't going to have the full amount of depth we were going to need. I think Deron Bland was still having some trouble. And, yeah, there was a reason. I think almost our entire secondary was on IR for the most part. So it was just some guys we picked up to help fill out the roster.
Yeah, because you had Kalen Carson out at the time. You had Josh Butler out at the time. You know, so you had a lot of depth that was missing.
Yeah.
Bland. Yeah, Bland. And there was a lot of question marks around Trayvon, too, at the time. And then he, showed up and played week 1. But anyways, Bridges was selected by the Los Angeles Chargers in the 7th round, where he previously played at Oregon and then his last year at Florida. At his height, 6'2", and a weight of 200 pounds, his draft profile was highly known for his size and for at the cornerback position. 6'2" is a very good height to have there. And he also has a really good reach. I didn't get his exact number for his reach, and I need to get that, but he has a really good reach. If you watch him play, his reach is something special there. For Dallas this past season, he served as a backup and the special teams guy. Bridges, at least for this season, will be known for his interception, actually, at the beginning of the Broncos game. If anyone remembers that, he had that first pick right out the gate and, kind of set off that momentum where Dallas fans may have had some excitement. Could we walk in the mile high and win, right? Looking at PFF, they grade him as an overall of a 48.1 with only 192 snaps, where he recorded 15 solo tackles and allowed 15 receptions with 13.9 yards per reception. And this was all before today's game here too, so I can add that in later. But Bridges allowed a passer rating of 112.5, which is actually surprisingly lower than the safety so far. So as I'm going through this has actually been the lowest passer rating allowed by one of our DBs so far, which is still not good, but it's the lowest. Bridges, who is still under contract till 2029, will be someone I expect to be around next year, maybe competing for snaps at corner, but he's definitely a project guy. Some of the things I noticed about him is he'll need to work on his down the field skills, and I kind of saw it today. When he's trailing a receiver down the field, he gets his hands on the guy. He gets his hands on the guy a little bit too much, which can draw those penalties and those flags. That can cause some big down the field plays for the offense or give them the momentum to keep going on their drives. Another thing is when going back and watching the Commanders game where he played a lot of snaps, his IQ is great. His ability to work in that zone scheme that Eberflus provided for them, he was very good at passing people off and then being able to help or realize when the quarterback's dropping back and letting go of that ball. One of the plays I called out is there was a crosser going on like this, and as he passes off the one guy going across the field to another guy, he realizes the quarterback's about to dump it off to the guy going into the more of the flats area than midfield, and he immediately drops off the guy in the midfield and goes straight to the flats to help make that tackle as the safety comes over the top of him, right? So his IQ is great. I think he's definitely just going to need to work on that one-on-one skill, those go routes and stuff, trying to keep their hands off of him or trying to find a way to not get called out as well because of his reach. He just has such a long reach that when he's fully extended, those refs are going to see his hands on that receiver. Double moves do hurt him as well, and those are usually down the field routes. Overall, he's a low money contract guy, obviously being the 7th round pick and picking him up for absolutely nothing. I think he's earned a chance to be on this roster going into this offseason and at least fighting at training camp. What comes out of training camp, those kind of guys are year-to-year players. They have to earn it every training camp. We'll see how it goes, but his overall grade, I'm going to give him a C. I mean, for what he showed in the snaps that he got, I saw the potential, and I see why Dallas picked him up to start the season, especially because he didn't have no training camp, no preseason games with him. He did pretty well overall. How do you feel about Bridges? Is that kind of where you're at with him?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with most of that. I think Trikweze Bridges is a rookie that's got an upside. I think he
Yep.
played pretty well, and he did get opportunities. I know the play you're talking about where they ended up dumping it off to that running back. It was kind of like a soft pick, and he
Yeah.
caught on to what was going on, and he went ahead and released his guy and came in and made that tackle. It was really nice to see because it shows that the IQ is there. So I would rather take an unproven guy who's trainable and is learning and is actually identifying things like that than a guy who's been here for 4 years and is still not making an impact. I think he has an upside. And one of the things you mentioned, yes, he is very handsy, but he's a tall, long cornerback.
Yep.
And being handsy tells me that one, he's keeping up with the wide receiver, because if you can put your hands on the receiver, that means you're with him step for step. And that tells me he can maintain coverage, which is a lot more than what some of them have provided this year. So the downfall to that is usually if you got long arms and you're tall and rangy, you've got long legs, which takes you a little bit longer to get out of breaks. So he's just going to have to get really, really good at utilizing leverage inside or outside, depending on what he's trying to defend and what kind of play or route is being ran against him.
Yeah.
But he's a rookie, couple years with some consistent play in a training camp and a good coach, and you may find yourself something there. So
he reminds me of what Chicago's got, and I got to do the size comparison, but on top of my head while we're talking about is Nashawn Wright, who Al Harris has had a great season with, that length and all that. I think if we had Al Harris here, I think he could make something out of him. Now, let me get this straight for everybody here. He is not somebody who I'm looking to say next year start right across from Deron Bland. This is a guy that if you were having a really successful team, and let's say he's like your third or fourth string corner or whatever, and maybe fourth or fifth is where I'm more lean towards. He's somebody that you would develop and be a project guy over the years and do a lot of special team snaps. I do not need to see him as my starting corner across Deron. And that's not saying that he doesn't have the ability to do it. I just don't think he's the solution going into like next year saying he's my cornerback too.